Welcome into another edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. So much to get into when it comes to just Joel Embiid and a tell-all piece on ESPN. Keith Pompey and I go in-depth with this in-depth piece on Joel Embiid on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. That's right. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Keith, there's a long article. I feel like we were doing a book report almost on Joel Embiid by ESPN, and it really is a tell-all piece. His background, the host people he lived with in Florida when he was just leaving Africa, just leaving Cameroon. It tells all about his time just starting up with the 76ers, being drafted, all the way up to present day. It is absolutely a deep dive into Joel Embiid's career to this point. As a basketball player, as a Jayhawk, as a 76er. There's a lot of stuff in here that I didn't know about. Maybe you didn't know about. I'm curious to see what you found a bit surprising about all of it. But my main three takeaways are Joel Embiid does not trust anybody, pretty much, even to the point of leaving cash around his apartment back in the day just to see if anybody would steal it. He has major trust issues. Those worked its way over to the 76ers. My second takeaway is in the early goings, especially, as much as he might have been messed up with injury, the Sixers were messed up as an organization, and Burner Gate with Brian Colangelo was just the tip of the iceberg. And then finally, what's most important for Sixers fans, my takeaway is no timeline for a return. And if there's anything he said in the article about the injury that he has right now and recovering from surgery, he is simply not going to push it. First question I have for you, Keith, is there anything in that article that made you raise your eyebrows and go, that's a little surprising, or I didn't know that, or I never heard it explained like that? What jumped out to you?
I think a lot of it did. I mean, to be honest with you. Well, I mean, here's the thing. The big thing is it was more of an explanation because, Joel can be like an introvert, so to speak. A guy who guys say, you come in, he comes into practice in the locker room and he doesn't speak. You know what I mean? Like they would say that. He just always kept to himself. So to me, the big thing was the explanation, and it basically started when, he got to that house at the Rock Hill and he was living with that family, and he would basically stay in his room. And then you realize why he has trust issues. So to me, I feel like the reporter did a very good job of letting Joel explain why he feels that way. Also, why when Joel does, and it was like the guy, he did break it down. Like when Joel talks to you, you always got the sense that he was being dismissive and he was doing certain things, but he was actually doing them to see what type of response you would get. Also, he did certain things because he kind of realized it would get under your skin. Prime example, when you would interview Joel, is basically he's sitting there before you talk to him, watching the game on his phone. And you're saying to yourself, like, dude, everybody's on deadline. Why is he doing this? But by reading this, he was doing this to this guy, but it's his way of seeing how people react. So to me, that was that. There were certain things that, I wish that, and I like the article, but, when he said that, the team was trying to push him back early on, I wish that part would have came out sooner, years ago, because the side that people were saying was that Joel wasn't taking the rehab serious at that time. And that led to the foot not getting healed. Right. So, you know what I mean? So to me, I would have liked to hear that part years ago, or at least have somebody, the doctor coming back and saying, well, no, this is what happened. You know what I'm saying? So
absolutely.
to me, that was one of the things. The James Harden relationship. You kind of knew that him and James aren't cool anymore. Like, from what I hear, like maybe there's other guys on the team who left who don't speak to him anymore as well. And Joel was kind of explaining that the reason why is because he doesn't go in there and he doesn't feel like it's his job to say keep this guy or make this guy leave or make him leave. So it was an insightful article. I will say that. Now it was long. Really long, like, dude, it was like, I was trying to read it on my phone, and you know how you like, go, I'm saying, you gotta start over again. Not start over, get it back, and then scroll back to where
you get a text message. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. And the one guy did say his PR guy, this personal therapist, Kim. It was great because she was always around, and then all of a sudden you don't see her anymore. And the crazy part is the guy who works for him now is Tobias Harris's former trainer.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, she's not around. And like the part that got me was where the lady was crying. The host mom was crying.
Yeah.
And then Kim came back and said, "This is going to be the first year I'm not going to be invited to Arthur's birthday party," and got emotional over that. So that really, you're like, oh. Those are certain things that stood out.
Yeah, I want to, for people who haven't read it yet, I also want to say this is a personal piece more than it is a basketball piece. The things I get from it, from the basketball world, really have to do with Joel Embiid's injury, as you were just alluding to. And this is the first injury. This is the injury that kept him out of playing through the first 2 years of his career. He has a real big trust issue, to go back to that. The Sixers, he thought, weren't handling him properly. It wasn't a matter of him, according to him, wasn't a matter of him not eating properly or not taking the rehab serious. He didn't trust what the Sixers were telling him. He's like, this isn't healing. This is hurting. I don't like this. This isn't right. And the Sixers, according to him, were kind of pushing him along this entire process. And he goes to the doctor finally a year later. And the doctor's like, yeah, this isn't healing. And it was like Joel Embiid felt vindicated in that moment. Like, I told you guys this wasn't healing. It was also stunning to learn that the first person apparently overseeing Joel Embiid's recovery after being drafted by the Sixers, was an intern. That doesn't seem responsible, Keith. That seems rather negligent. Was that surprising?
But I want to see what type of, because you remember they had a guy, Dr. David Martin. They had some other people who were like on call with the 76ers. So my question is, it seems very negligent. But at the same time, I want to know who the intern was and what was his credentials. Because if it was somebody who you hired and you say, okay, this guy is coming here and we can only give you a quote unquote internship, because you don't have nobody, like, in my opinion, I find it hard to believe that you have an actual intern.
Right. Yeah.
Treating the face of the franchise. So I need to know who that guy. Now, I wish that they would have said who he was so we could all like cut and paste the name and do a Google search and see what his credentials were. It was before he came here. Because to me, that sounds kind of like bizarre.
Negligent, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but at the same time, I'm telling you, like, the guys that they had here, I don't know. I don't remember seeing an intern. Now, I do remember seeing, like, a guy, a personal trainer working with him and stuff like that. But in regards to being overseeing it, because think about it, this is the NBA. How do you have an intern? Honestly, how do you have an intern working with a franchise player? I don't see it. I don't see it.
The thought that jumped to mind was maybe it's not a medical intern overseeing Joel Embiid's rehab or anything like that, but maybe it's just an intern reporting to management. This is what he did today. This is what he's doing. This is what I heard from the doctors. That's kind of the way I took it, just because it would be so outlandish to think of it in any other way. And again, to use the word negligent. And then after that, Hinkie's the one that brought in David Martin, who had experience in Australia with these players, and basically said, if you had to rehab a 7-footer with navicular bone, fracture. How would you deal with this? And that's where Martin kind of guided this whole, to use the word again, process with Joel Embiid and trying to get him back into shape. And then a year later, after they get the first surgery x-ray back, he then proceeds to have another surgery and then misses a second season. The other thing that I could take from this article, Keith, is apparently Joel Embiid knows who the snitch was in Miami that let the media know what was said, and that Tyrese Maxey called him out for being late to meetings and bringing the whole vibe of the team down and all that. He didn't say he was I'll leave the past in the past, but said that player might not be, or it's hard to have that player still around. So then the reporter asked him, well, who's this? He goes, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to name him, but he might still be around. I don't know. And it goes back and forth with the reporter. And he says, you don't know who's on your team? And he said, well, it's still free agency. I mean, look, I think I have an idea of who they're alluding to. I'll say it. I think it's Kyle Lowry, to be honest. I don't know if you have an opinion on the matter. I know you're a lot closer to the situation than I am. But when that part of the story came up, yeah, I'm going to leave it in the past, but it still bothers me. That was definitely an eyebrow raiser for me.
Yeah, but see, I don't like that comment right there, because I feel like if you're going to come out and say it. Because now you got certain guys catching sprays. Yeah, right. So like, I don't know who it was. I mean, he said for a while he knew who it was. But at the same time, I also think that Joel is the master of getting the message out there, but not giving you enough information, right? So where that comes out, it's said. Now, again, I get it, and I get what people are saying. But at the same time, like, I hope, because people start saying Eric Gordon's name, Eric Gordon comes out, he responds and say, that's not how I get down. And typically, to be honest with you, when you have like veteran players, they tend to try to keep stuff in the house as close to the vets, right? Mm-hmm. They just try to. But here's the thing, dude. If it's going to be like, if it was all the coaches and it was all the players in there, it could have been anyone. Yeah. It could have been anyone. You know what I mean? So, that's the deal. That's the deal. And again, it's like, I don't know. I can't really speak to it. And I'm not going to come out and say who I think it is on a podcast and not knowing who it is. So I just feel like I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And the thing is, like, the deal was, let's be honest. We weren't about who the snitch was, but nobody lied and said what was said was true or false.
Right. Yeah. You're just mad that it got out. That's all.
Yeah.
It didn't go down like that. It went down like this. No. You're just mad it got out. And I get that. I certainly get that. Look, we got a lot to get to in this article, because it is, I mean, really, if you're a Joel Embiid fan, if you're a Sixers fan, if you want more information on what has made Joel Embiid the basketball player he is today, the man he is today, this article certainly provides that. There's one overwhelming theme, though, and I'll mention that. We'll get into that a little bit when we come back. We see your comments. We're going to take you guys' comments. This is a live show. We are live today again. We'll be back after this, and we'll get into the overriding theme of this article when we come back. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. You guys have heard me talk about OpenPhone before, and hopefully you're taking advantage of all OpenPhone has to offer. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe around the house, maybe for a plumber, maybe something like that. Did you just sit there and wait for the first person to call you back? No, you kept on calling. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and texts on the single app. OpenPhone is fantastic. Their shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat with OpenPhone. OpenPhone is offering our listeners and viewers 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's OpenPhone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. The overriding theme for me, Keith, and you tell me what you thought it was, but for me, this was Embiid's side of the story. This whole piece, as long as it was, as good as it was, as in-depth as it was, this was Joel Embiid explaining his side of the story. And one of the things I will say about this, I don't think anyone gets the access to Joel Embiid that this reporter got without that kind of being a bit of an understanding. Like, I want to get my side of the story out there. Here's my side of the story. You'll get access that I've never given anyone, and you're going to get an in-depth piece on this. I'm going to give my side of the story. I got to tell my side of things. Was that kind of an overriding theme for you as you were reading?
Yeah, like, I mean, again, I love the reporter. Matter of fact, I reached out to him and said, yo, great article. Guy, the guy played football at North Penn High School, right?
Wow.
A local guy from Africa, but a local guy. Here's the deal. I would have loved to hear when he said the reason why him and James Harden didn't get along. I would have loved to hear why. I would love to hear from James Harden to say why he didn't get along. When he said that he had an intern who was working for him, treating him, I would have loved to hear if it was really an intern or if not. I would love to hear Sam Hinkie's voice in there. I would have loved to hear Brett Brown's voice in there, right? You know what I'm saying? So to me, it was a deep article. You got a lot of people who spoke in the article who have relationships for him. But if you're making statements about the intern, and if you're making statements about James Harden, I would have loved to hear what James Harden had to say about that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Get the background.
Just get the background, or just because the thing is, we don't know why James and him don't get along. Like, we just don't. We have Joel's opinion to why it happened, and it didn't. But you know what? The one thing, I'm going to just tell you this about this article, something else that stood out to me was when Daryl Morey was asked about what's the possibility of Embiid not coming back. And he looked and chuckled. The person in the room, the PR guy, chuckled, and they all laughed. And then Daryl gets up and leaves, right? And then when all of a sudden Embiid's asked the same question, and he goes and he says to the guy, I'm about to leave too, right? And then he laughs. Then his assistant laughs. So to me, I'm kind of like, everybody, Daryl Morey is up here saying how they're hopeful that he's going to return, this and that. But when they're asked specific questions on the record, they get a little nervous, right? So to me, it's like the severity. And then Joel came back and said, look, in the past, I came back too soon. I always rush back. I'm taking my time. Well, he missed the first half of last season. So if that was rushing, what's it going to be like this year? Right. So to me, those things really stood out to me as well. Now, again, it was kind of sort of like, a one-sided story in a way. It was a great story, but it was one-sided. But and it did a great job of telling who Joel Embiid was, who he is. That's my biggest takeaway. But the thing that stood out when they talked about those injuries and maybe not playing anymore or not coming back, it got a little shaky. People got nervous. So that stood out to me.
One thing I couldn't determine from reading it, that was that in the private setting with the reporter And I, by the way, I can't pronounce his name. I don't want to butcher his name, but he did a phenomenal job writing the story. I just want to get that out of the way. But with Daryl Morey, was that with Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse? And
yeah, it was, but I believe that's when Nick Nurse left because he had to go to practice.
Right.
So
okay,
it was basically the guy. It was him, Daryl, and the PR guy. So I'm assuming I wasn't there, but I'm assuming it was Dave Schaller, the head of it. But yeah, it was like, whoa.
Yeah. So that was very interesting because also from Daryl Morey, all we've heard when in the rare occasion that we get an opportunity to hear from him when he talks about Joel Embiid, it looks like everything's on track. We're expecting him to be back for the start of the season. In all honesty, Keith, my bottom line for Joel Embiid, when he says in the story he's not going to push it, he feels like he's pushed it before. As you said, he's come back too early. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Joel Embiid play until like January of next season. I'm not rooting for it, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's the case. Because again, he says he doesn't want to push things with this injury. There's something else that he also mentioned, and this came from, is it Kim Kaspare or Casper, who was treating him for all that time? There was two things that really jumped out to me. One was that just the general fact that she was really there for Joel Embiid and really wanted to have his best interest at heart. The other was that she had, I think, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and people would tease her that Joel Embiid was their oldest child. Like a funny thing. And then the other was that she became one of the people that was in the circle of trust for Joel Embiid. And she even told him, if you're going to play against the Knicks, this is 2 seasons ago now, if you're going to play against the Knicks, please be on a minutes restriction. When it came to Bell's palsy, when it came to the headaches, when it came to the eyesight and all that, please put yourself on a 25-minute restriction. And we'll demand it from the team or whatever. And Joel Embiid admitted to her that night that he read the text before the game. He said he read the text, but just kind of brushed it off. He ended up playing 40 minutes that night and dropping 50 points. Like that's just one of the wild stories about him actually playing basketball in the story, in the piece that I found very interesting, that there was a thought to limit his minutes. And Keith, I think we would have known, we all know what would have happened if Joel Embiid played only 25 minutes in that game. One, we understand it was game 3, but the public ridicule. You're a minute restriction in the playoffs. And then the other would be, how soft is Joel Embiid that he's only available for 25 minutes in the postseason.
Yeah, she was a good person. The thing is that really stood out. I don't think anybody is on a minutes restriction in the playoffs, and I don't think the team wanted him to be on a minute restriction. I think
you're the player, you don't.
Yeah, she wanted him to be on one, but at the same time, he played. I think it was a good idea for him. It was a good article for him to tell his side of the story, because again, everybody was saying he was soft, everybody saying he's weak, this and that, and what it did is I think it humanized him in a way for people to like relate to him. And then you got certain people who feel sorry for him, right? You got certain people saying, look, why are we being hard on this guy? Look at how he's doing whatever he can to play. Now, I will say this. It did take Embiid a long time after games at times with her. And what I mean is, like, they would do treatment forever. So it got to the point, some days we were happy when he was like, okay, I'll do the interview before I do my treatment. Right.
Oh, okay.
And she was there constantly with him. Constantly. She was always around. Nice lady too, but she was always around. But in regards to, like, again, the particulars and all that, with like that, I think what she said, that text message was cool. The thing that stood out to me was that he said, like, when she asked him, did you get the text message? And he said, yeah. Like, basically, he still showed up. You know what I mean? So that was cool. Right.
Yeah, that was really. By the way, I didn't see in the article. Maybe I missed it. What happened? Why is she no longer with the team?
They don't work together. If she wasn't really with the team, she was for him.
Oh, she was working with him. Okay.
Yeah. Like, okay. So in other words, this is how it happens. So these guys, if you're a Joel Embiid, it's one of those things where you can hire who you want, and if you got that cachet. but then the team hires her, if that makes sense. So in other words, it's like, it's really your person that you hired, but then, the team typically says, okay, well, she can come in and deal and be a part of us. So it was really, it wasn't like she was there and then she was assigned to Joel. No, she was working with Joel. Gotcha. And then Joel needed a lot extra help. So she came on board.
I want to get a couple comments in here in the next segment when we come back. Also, there's two things that I really thought summed up what the article was all about, more so than just an overlying theme. And it has to do with Joel Embiid's desire to play basketball. And I know that's what's most important to a lot of people. We'll talk about that when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on the Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. You guys have heard me talking about Monarch Money before and how fantastic Monarch Money is. Maybe you got young kids. Maybe you're saving for college. Maybe you want to buy that new car. Monarch Money can help you manage that money even easier. With Monarch Money, you can help yourself out when it comes to savings or planning that big purchase. Monarch puts you in the driver's seat, and it's like having your own personal CFO, giving you the visibility and control over your own finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's so much more. It's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth with Monarch Money. Everything made so much easier. Maybe you just got married, combined finances with your partner. Monarch Money can help you manage that to make it stress-free. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year at monarchmoney.com. There's a couple of points here. The number one thing was when he said, and it's quoted in the story, I care about how I'm being remembered when it comes to basketball, but not as a man. As a man, you can't tell me nothing. I like that line. And then it also talks about the most important thing for him, most important offseason of my life is one of the things that was highlighted. And I couldn't agree more. We're going to talk about his legacy in a second. We'll take some comments, but Keith, ultimately his legacy will greatly be defined. If this is an awful injury season for him, I could absolutely see him never playing again after this year. So he talks about it being the most important offseason and his legacy as a basketball player and how he's remembered as a basketball player. Yeah, I'd say this is the pivotal moment, Keith.
Yeah, if he doesn't, his legacy right now is, and I get it. He came out with this article, and there are going to be certain people who say, look at him. He was a warrior. He was this and that.
Right.
But then his legacy is kind of going to be he didn't get out of the second round. That's his legacy. Mm-hmm. His legacy is that he's going to be the only league MVP who've never advanced beyond the second round. That's his legacy. And some people might say that's not fair because of the injuries, but that's what it's going to be. Like, you can't add anything else. That's a fact. That's his legacy.
He does talk about injury issues throughout his career. Like, how do I become less injury prone? There was a point in the story where narratives about him were presented to him, such as injury prone, can't make it out of the second round, stuff like that. I'll get to another specific one here. Cares too much about individual awards. And he says, going after an MVP award, if you have the chance to, you're absolutely going to go after it. Stuff like that. He didn't think he had the ability to be an MVP because he wasn't going to be good offensively, only defensively. But as it turns out, we all know he was pretty good offensively as well. So things like that were rolled out in front of him, and he tried to shoot him down one by one. When it came to the injury narrative, if you will, which is only reporting the news, by the way, it's not a narrative. He said, what am I supposed to do? How do I prevent myself from getting elbowed in the face? How do I prevent myself from breaking a hand on a rim or getting a concussion or having Markelle Fultz's shoulder ram into my face to break it? Stuff like that. And I get that part of it, but you mentioned that word warrior. My take after the Knicks series, when people were like, he's too soft, whatever, you could say he's not available when the team needs him the most, because oftentimes he is injured, and I get that part of it. But he made himself available for that Knicks series, and you saw how much 80%, if you even want to say it was that high, 80% of Joel Embiid with a banged up knee and Bell's palsy scores 50 points in a playoff game to help the Sixers stay alive in that series and still have a 6-game series against the Knicks. That to me is a warrior. That's a guy trying to play through injury for the best, for the best of his team. And you have his own trainer telling him, hey, or therapist telling him, hey, I only want you playing 25 minutes, push for 25 minutes. And he says, yeah, no, I can't do that. It's the playoffs. He plays 40 and drops 50. That also to me is Joel Embiid trying to get whatever he can out of the last couple years of his career, unfortunately.
Yeah, I just hope that Joel, like people who've seen him say he looks lighter. So basically, here's the thing. He just has to take better control of his body. I mean, the thing is one of those things where, all this stuff is great and all this stuff sounds good. And I get it. Believe me, I do. He's been banged up. But if he wants to continue to play, because we're calling him a warrior and everything like that, it's going to have to start with shedding LBs, like losing weight, being as light as he can be, but able still to have some of that strength, being cautious, like not diving on the floor when you don't have to, not doing all those other things. Because, here's the thing, like, yes, you can't control somebody elbowing you in your face, but at the same time, you can control diving on the floor, doing all these diving out of bounds, doing all those other things. You can also control your diet, right? You can. So those are certain things we have to do. And as far as like a warrior and doing things like that, I you know what? And I'm not taking a knock at him. I'm not. But we're from Philly. This dude is going to, at the end of his career, he's going to make over $500 million. His contract is going to be, people don't realize this. People don't know. Maybe this is something that Sixers fans can get upset with. The richest person in NBA contract is LeBron James. Number 2 is Steph Curry. Number 3 is Paul George. Number 4 is Joel Embiid, right? So when we talk about being a warrior, and I say maybe he was a warrior, right, for going out there. But I also think in this city, people expect you to be a warrior. There's a reason why TJ McConnell will come back to Philly and everybody's going to buy him a drink and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. So now, again, I give him his props and do all that other stuff, but you also have to come out and you got to play, man. You do. But what it starts with diet, and it starts with being more careful. You understand? There's other things that
accountability off the court.
Yeah, it's some things that you can't control, and I get that. Now, if the trainer said, Joel, maybe you shouldn't play, you know what? Don't play. Now, here's the thing. Based off of what Joel said, he's not gonna rush back this year. He's not going to rush back this year. So it is what it is. We'll see.
Two final things. One thing that I just rolled my eyes out because I don't care what his camp says, what he says, this bothered me. Him playing for the Olympics was his last chance at winning a championship, I think, in his mind. Let me make sure I get this. And he got that. Good for him. He got it. I don't like the fact that he played in the Olympics and then wasn't ready for the regular season. I don't care how many minutes he played. He did that. He wasn't ready for the Sixers. Simple as that. It says in the article that his camp just kind of swatted that notion away. I don't care. That matters. The other thing I want to mention, and I'll say this, Marcus Hayes is a friend of mine. Marcus Hayes is a friend of mine. The fact that he said he'd fight Marcus, or he'd push Marcus Hayes again for $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, $10 million. The guy can hold a grudge, I guess.
Yeah.
That's all. That's what I'll say about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, here's the thing, like, and that's something else too, because when the friends did swat away the point of playing on the Olympics, but it's crazy because they basically downplayed that But Kim sent them text messages saying, don't play in the playoff games, right? So then a couple months later, you're playing in the Olympics. So, I mean, to me, I've never been in the Olympics, so I can't speak to someone saying give up this opportunity when you probably never get it again, knowing that you guys are the gold medal favorite, knowing that you're going to France and you're going to have all this. I get all that, right? So I understand, but at the same time, it's kind of like you're mentioning one thing, but then you're coming back and downplaying something else.
Exactly. I want to get a couple of comments in here real quick. I'm trying to follow the chat as best as I can throughout the show. Okay, I can't put that one up there. Joel Embiid. Hey, James Harden bought Embiid a watch for winning MVP. Oh, that's nice, Phil. They should be friends, but apparently not anymore. We didn't mute Hinky. We didn't mute anybody. I don't know. That's weird. What's good? Oh, hi, Jason. Nice to see you. Man, the Embiid article was deep. Crawley, it absolutely was. What's up, Kay? Nice to see you, man. Embiid setting the expectations now. Fans, get ready. That's kind of what it feels like as well. Here we go. People calling Embiid lazy have no clue what they are talking about. I agree. I will say this, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, Keith. Eating habits. If you can't be, doing the conditioning drills, you got to eat healthy, man. You got to eat healthy. I did find it interesting. The article pointed out him eating the cheeseburgers on the sidelines, and then I think the other day he was eating a cheeseburger one moment, and I think the other he was eating grapes, like a full thing of grapes. I remember him lowering that into his mouth. I'm like, oh, that's a healthier option. There we go. Strong. All right. Yeah, a lot of people just frustrated overall with this. UF Fraud said Keith Pompey is right. I think you're always right. So there we go. And Brian Pumper, the fan base is scared to hold this man accountable. I think the fan base absolutely holds him accountable. I think there is a section, Keith, where that he could do no wrong, but I think there's also a rightful section as well that thinks, yeah, for instance, this is one of my other takeaways of the article. Okay, all this is great. I'm glad I know all this now about Joel Embiid. Some stuff I didn't know before. A lot of stuff I didn't know before. But just win. That's what, like be healthy enough to win. Put yourself in the best possible position to help this team win. And then all of a sudden, we're not talking about, is he misunderstood? Does he need to give his side of the story? We're just talking about, Joel Embiid, MVP and champion. This is all under the guise of, can he win again in the NBA?
You know, the thing, though, that strikes me about this article is the timing of the article. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a good article, and this guy put a lot of effort into it. But I'm afraid that we could be seeing the beginning of the end, right?
Yeah.
Because this is basically explaining who he is and everything like that. And, typically NBA players really don't like talking about what they go through. And stuff like that, because they feel like it gives their opponents an advantage. Like you always say, hey man, you will literally see a guy mess his leg up or a guy get stitches. Hey, what's up? I'm all right, nothing. It ain't nothing wrong. No, I'm good. I'm good. What you mean you're good, dude? I see your hand dangling. You know what I mean? So, like your arm dangling. So, it's like, nah, it's good. If I'm good enough to be out here, I'm good enough to be out here. I don't even want to talk about it. But the fact that he went into full detail, and don't get me wrong, it was a great article about, talking about all the people he dealt with. It explained a lot about his personality. It explained how he felt, right? The thing that gets me is I'm wondering is this is the end near?
The send-off.
Seriously. Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if it's there because like it's to a point where and I get it. There are certain comments saying, look, man, he's ranked whatever 84th, he's ranked 50th. Well, he's not that low. Like, I don't know who would rank him that way. They did, whoever did, but he's not. Like,
right.
But at the same time, to me, it's just you normally don't see articles like this when somebody's in their prime. You know what I'm saying? You don't see that. You don't.
It's interesting. Is this the prep for the send-off? Like, if this recovery doesn't go well and you got to push it back later in the season, he's not ready to start the season, was this the beginning of the end, to your point? Was this the beginning of the send-off? Was this all right, just in case this all hits the fan with my recovery, everyone knows where I'm coming from, I'm doing everything I can, blah, 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 listen to my whole story here. It could very well be that. Keith, everyone in the chat, thank you so much. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to talk about that Summer League game that was last night because Keith and I actually enjoyed that game. That was fun. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers. Make sure you guys are reading Keith Pompey on Inquirer.com. And, of course, thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On NBA podcast wherever where there's no off season. How about that? Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find the Locked On Network, Locked On NBA show on YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Catch you guys tomorrow. See you then.